Hi everyone. So in this lesson, we are going to talk about paper space slash layout and printing or plotting. And so I'll go ahead and go through this by going through assignment 2.5. And when I open up assignment 2.5, it brings me to the layout tab. I'm going to go back to model space really quick. And model space, this is where we create our drawings, right? So we use this for creating drawings. And once our drawing is created, we use this to then print or plot our drawings. And so this is used to prepare our papers for being plotted. And so when we're in drawing space, we always want to draw to actual size. And then we scale that. So let's say if I have a building that is like 150 feet in length, I would draw it to 150 feet in length. But you can't fit 150 feet drawing onto an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. But you would scale that drawing in here with your viewport. And so what I want you to do for this assignment is I want you to insert a viewport, and then configure your settings so that way we can save this as a drawing template. Okay, so right now I just have this title block here. There's no viewport. So this is a block. This block was actually created in model space, and then I pasted it into this layout tab. All right, and so if I, for example, let me just draw something very simple right here. I go here, I'm not going to see anything because there's no viewport. So I need to insert my viewport. I'm going to do that by going here to the layout tab, and I can choose under layout viewports panel. I can choose rectangular, or I can choose polygonal or object. So if I have a shape here already that I drew, so just to emphasize, I can draw in paper space, but I don't want to actually create drawings in paper space. That's not a best practice for AutoCAD. So create your drawings in model space, but let's say I created this circle in paper space because I want to make that into a viewport. Well, I can by going to Object and then selecting this right here. And then a little confusing because I drew a circle in here too. So I'm gonna make it a little bit more obvious that it's different. Okay. So this is just a whatever drawing, right? So now I have the circle viewport and I'm looking into model space and I see my drawing. And I can change the layer of this viewport. I would change it to the viewport layer. And I'll go ahead and delete that. I can also create a rectangular viewport. Do that like this. Then automatically put in my drawing in there. And once again, I can change the layer of that if I would like to. But for this specific assignment, I'm going to choose polygonal. And I'll go ahead and I'll change my layer right now because I know I'm going to have it on the viewport layer. I'll go back to layout and then I'll choose polygonal. Okay, so now I'm just going to click around this title block until I meet the end to create a closed object, and then I'll press enter. There we go, and now I have a viewport. So this viewport is like a window looking into model space to see my drawing. And I can see the scale of that window down here. If I zoom in and out, it adjusts the scale. I always want to have a nice round number for my scale, so I can have 1 to 2, 1 to 1, etc. when you work with imperial units, which is what we use, right? So we typically use inches for our drawings. If you're creating like some kind of mechanical project or piece, you might be using metric, and in that case, you would use these scales. But typically, what we're going to be doing in this class, for the most part, is we'll be working with inches and feet. So we'll be using the imperial, and then we can use these scale options here. So I can change it like so. Okay, and then I could adjust it in frame, and then if I don't want to easily change it, I could lock my viewport because sometimes you might be trying to change the information in this title block and you click something and then you move your view and you don't want that. And so this title block was created with attributes. So if I were to double click in this, I can easily change the information for my title block. So I can change the title, the date, the scale. So the scale is what we just were using right here. I can change the sheet number and I can insert my name. So for example, let me click back on my viewport. For scale, I could put 3 inches equals 1 foot 0 inches in my scale. Okay. And so when I configure my template, I want to make sure my page is set up correctly. So to go to page setup, I would go down here. I'm right clicking my tab, ANSI A. So that's the name of my tab, but I can always rename this by double clicking, or I can go up here and select rename by right clicking. I can insert a new layout tab, and that automatically brings up a new viewport. And let's see what else. I can also copy this. So if I want to create another, so notice when I did layout, it just created a layout like this. I don't have my title block with it. But let's say I want to create another one with my title block. I can go move or copy, and I can create a copy of this. I'll say okay. And then now I have 2 of them. So now I can change my view if I want to something else, lock it, and now I have one page that looks like this, and then another page with my title block that has a different view. All right, and so let's say I want to change my settings. So if I right click, I'm just on the layout one. I'm going to go to page setup manager, and I'll say modify. And by default, the printer plotter, it doesn't have anything. So I would want to change that to DWG to PDF. And then ANSI full bleed A, that's what I want. There's different options. So if you, for example, do full bleed, that is going to take up the entire page. This dotted line would go away, and that's what we have on the other one. So we'll choose that. And then plot style. Right now it says none. If you leave it at none, it will print like all the colors in your drawing, for example, but usually we want to print in black and white. So I want the default to be monochrome, and plot transparency, I like to have that on. And I'll say okay. So now it configured this piece of paper to the settings I just specified. My viewport didn't change, just my piece of paper did. If I changed it to a different size, so I'll modify, oh, not right here. So let's say an 11 by 17 piece of paper. There we go. Now I have a larger piece of paper. And I still have the same size viewport, but I could adjust it like so. Okay, but I don't actually need this layout, so I'll delete it. I don't actually need this one for my template, so I'll delete that as well. And I'm just going to double check my settings in my page setup manager for this layout tab. So I already have DWG to PDF. That's what I want. Monochrome, that's also what I want. And see full bleed, that's what it's set to. So this is a regular 11 by 8.5 piece of paper. And I just want to turn on plot transparency and I'll say okay. All right, and I'll go ahead and go back to model space. I'm going to delete this line work. And I'll go ahead and I'm going to look back at my assignment really quick, make sure I'm matching what I have here. So this is assignment 2.5, and I want to make sure I have these layers matching this, and then I'm going to change my text size and dimension text height and my units. Or if I don't change them, I'll be at least checking them. So for my layers, let's see what I have. So I have a lot of layers. Let me check the properties. Okay, so I do need to change some things, which I need to change the line weights. So I'll change the center one to the default. Dimension is going to be default. Geometry will say 0.028, and everything else is default except for the title block. So I'll change all of this. And you might be wondering, like, why are there two, like geometry and title block, for example? They're both white, they're both continuous, they both have a 0.028 line weight. Why? What's the point of having both of these? It's because if we are drawing in our drawing with the geometry layer, so we want to create our line work on the geometry layer. And then if we want to freeze that layer, or if we want to lock it or something, so probably freeze it or change something about it, then that's also going to freeze our title block on our layout tab. And so because this is a completely separate thing, that's why it has its own layer, because we don't want to treat that how we would treat our geometry objects in the model space. Okay, so now that is matching to what I have on my assignment. So I will close that. I'm going to check my units, make sure it's in inches, which it is. So that's what I want. And I'm going to change the text size. So I have it in all capitals on my assignment because that's a command. So I'll change text size to 0.18. And my dimension text height, I'll go ahead and do that in here. I'll modify the standard dim. I'll go to text. The text height is 2. I'll change it to 0.18 as well. And I'll say OK. And I'm going to go to the geometry layer because that's where I want to start drawing when I first open up this file. Okay, and so now I'm going to make this into a template file. So you can save it, and then you can also go here to save as. And this automatically brought open my folder for template. If you're working in VMware, you don't want to put it here because it will auto erase when they clear the computers. And that happens, I think every night. It might be a little bit different, but I'll put it in my own personal file. And I will just put it in here. And I'll name it ANSI A because that's the type of paper. That's the paper size that I'm using. So I'll save it here. I don't really need a description, so I'll just say OK. All right. So now I'll go ahead and close this. If I go to my folder, I have right here ANSI A. And if I were to double click this, that will open up a new drawing called Drawing 1, but it's created using my template. So I already have all my layers. which is very nice and convenient. I already have my title block, and this title block has attributes where I can insert the information I need for each different assignment. And so once I have all this said and done, I can start drawing in here. And from here, I'm also going to print and plot. So I can, and I'll go over this as we go through the assignments, but if I were to go here, I can go here and say plot, and then I can, this is also going to give me an option to change things for my page setup, and I could preview, and right now I don't have anything drawn, right? So it's just my title block that I have. And I can print it that way. And there's also an option to batch plot, and I'll go through that as we go through the assignments. But batch plot could be found right here under print and then batch plot. You can also type in the word batch plot, you could type in the word plot, and you could type in the word preview to preview your drawing. Okay. Hi class. So I need to make a correction for the template file. Some of my layers were a little bit off, and so I'm going to show you how to change your template file if needed. So I have AutoCAD open, but I don't have anything open in it. And then I'm just going to double click my template file to open it up. And like I mentioned before, that is going to just open up another drawing file. It's not going to open the .dwt file. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the changes that I need. And so for my center line, I need to change that to center 2. I need to change my hidden line to hidden 2. And I also want to change the color because I changed my background to white. So I changed the color of the dimensions so it's not so light. Okay. And those are all the changes that I'm going to make. And then I'm just going to save as this. Once again, a drawing template. And I'm just going to override my previously saved template. So I will say save, and yes, I want to replace it. All right, and that's it. So if I close this out, go back to my file, my template file, and open it up, then I should see those changes reflected. Okay, thank you.